Ah, it is that time again. It is the time of giving, of the spirit of joy, of mirth, of happiness. Yes, it is the time of Christmas, and one of the pastimes for people in our particular social circle, namely the fandoms, well, that is Christmas movies. And I actually have, for the start of our Christmas celebration, I actually have one movie that just came out. Actually, this past week, we just saw it, and it is utterly wonderful. And I intend to present it to you as I imbibe an absolutely lovely cup of hot chocolate. Today's movie is The Man Who Invented Christmas. It just came out this past week, and in essence, it is about Charles Dickens and the events that led up to him writing A Christmas Carol. Well, the film stars Dan Stevens, who most people know right now. This year, he earned, well, would you say acclaim? But he definitely earned attention for his portrayal of the Beast in the Disney remake of Beauty and the Beast. And definitely X-Men fans know him and love him as the star of the insanely mind-bending superhero series Legion. One of the things this movie really does insanely well is illustrate the frustration of writer's block and its toll that it actually takes on your home life. And in a fashion, it's kind of similar to one of my other favorite movies, which focuses on writer's block, Topsy-Turvy, the film about Gilbert and Sullivan. In this particular film, you have Charles Dickens, who is living opulently. He has a very large family, and he actually has another child on the way. And also, well, as you discover, he's also giving his father an allowance. But as you find out, the father in this film is played by Jonathan Pryce, who, freaking love Jonathan Pryce. Well, you find out that his father, John Dickens, is something of he's one of those guys who lives on a caviar and wine lifestyle on a beer and pizza budget. It's a lot like that. And he comes back into his life, and he's definitely affecting it considerably. Now, first thing I had to praise this movie on, Dan Stevens kills it. He absolutely kills it. I've been watching Legion, and also, even under the CGI in his performance as the Beast, he is exceptionally good with different types of modes of emotion on his face. He's especially good at reacting to things. He's especially good at conveying emotion through just subtle facial expression. He's very good at that. And that's and since this movie dominantly focuses on him, as it should, it's about Charles Dickens, he is an absolute boon to this movie, and he is the thing that really carries it all the way through. Now, the major thing that works so well in this movie, this also has an incredible supporting cast. It's also got Christopher Plummer, it's got Ian McNeice, among other people. But it actually, as another joke for Doctor Who fans, it's actually hilarious. The man who plays the illustrator, John Leach, he is played by Simon Callow, and Doctor Who fans will remember him as the man who played Charles Dickens in The Unquiet Dead. So it was kind of hilarious watching a scene where Charles Dickens is talking to Charles Dickens. But the thing that works about this film is that it illustrates inspiration incredibly well. Specifically, you see him just in his daily life as he goes around encountering people also from the upper class who pretty much relay their pretty abhorrent attitudes towards the lower classes, and you discover his inspiration for Ebenezer Scrooge to begin with. And it's personified in the form of Christopher Plummer, who, whenever he's writing and whenever he's trying to talk about or figure out Scrooge as a character, figure out the path they go, they actually physicalize it in his study as he's writing. And it's done incredibly well, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful the way it's acted out. Christopher Plummer plays the Scrooge character, and the thing I gotta wonder, now, if you know, please tell me if you spotted this, but if this has ever happened, but why have we never actually seen Christopher Plummer play Scrooge? Like, actually, bona fide play Scrooge. If he's played him on stage, I'd love to know if he did, because if not, we have missed an opportunity here, and we need to see Christopher Plummer legitimately play Scrooge. Seeing Christopher Plummer as the inspiration of Scrooge and the way he converses in these wonderfully constructed scenes in his back and forths with Charles Dickens as they try to deconstruct the character, try to deconstruct the path to which the story goes, it's fascinating. And actually, it's no mistake involving the story involving Charles Dickens' father. because you soon discover that there's a lot of Scrooge in Charles Dickens, and you wouldn't think it, but there's a part of Charles Dickens' life which, and I actually did some light research on this in preparation for this review, because one of the major problems with movies based on true stories is that they do tend to take dramatic license, and I'm sure at some point or another this film did the same. One thing I was very happy this film did not do was over-embellish on Charles Dickens in his childhood, where you find out that his father did live so recklessly that he got sent to debtor's prison, and a lot of and Charles himself was separated and was forced to work throughout his adolescent years in a shoe shine factory, basically mixing the stuff that makes shoe shine or boot blacking, that stuff. He did not have a happy childhood, and most people don't know he actually did not have any sort of formal education. This is a person who, and the thing Charles Dickens has always been famous for is writing stories about the downtrodden and the impoverished. And you tend to wonder maybe it was just someone who had just a higher education, but no, this is a man who was exposed to a very hard life and used it as inspiration to tell very endearing stories about the downtrodden. One could basically say Dickens was I guess you could say he was the English equivalent to Victor Hugo, except maybe a lot more optimistic. This film is absolutely fun. It has wonderful moments of humor, and it's very heartfelt all the way through. It is extremely passionate, and it is very endearing. I walked out of it with an utter smile on my face because I have myself a genuine love of Christmas Carol. Of all the Christmas stories that kind of stuck with me, and now I'm not talking about Die Hard or all these other crazy Christmas movies that we love to embrace as Christmas movies as fans. I'm talking about ones that are actually about Christmas. I will truly say Christmas Carol is the ultimate Christmas story, and really, for all intents and purposes, it's the original Christmas story. And there's a reason why this story has endured, and this movie does a wonderful job illustrating by showing the way it was assembled from the base up, using film as a visual medium to relay the story. It could be so easy to just show Charles at the table just writing, and that'd be nice, but the way this one goes about it is much more visually interesting, and through the visuals and through the personifications of these characters as perceived through Dickens is much more interesting, and it's much more fun. The one caveat I would say with this movie that does weigh it down a little bit, and because it falls into the one trap that most biopics have, specifically where once the core story is done, they just black out or just have subtitles over the final shot where they talk about the aftermath of it. While I was expecting that, I really would have liked to have seen a little bit of the impact that the book had afterwards, because the subtitle says that it sold out like crazy even before Christmas Day, and then afterwards it inspired this wave of generosity in the middle to upper classes, where they actually started becoming more generous. I would have liked to have seen that a bit more. It felt something a bit like, okay, we got this book's written, okay, let's get over. I would have liked to have seen it a bit more. And while I will say that I can see why they did what they did, because it would have been a bit of a pacing issue, because at that point we would have been like, okay, let's wrap this up. But simultaneously, there are ways where you can at least do a very delicate montage kind of showing it. That would have been good. It could have been, actually, heck, it would have been kind of cool if they did it during the credits. That would have been interesting if they maybe have done it during the credits. That would have at least given us something to work with. Because nowadays we're in the age where we have no problem waiting for credits and at least seeing something. As long as you give us something to sit there and watch in the credits, we're good with that. I would have liked to have seen that. So, for the first film that I've been reviewing for Christmas, I wanted to tell you about this one first because it just came out in the theaters. It is wonderful, and if you love Christmas Carol, I strongly recommend it. If you're looking for a new film to add to your roster of films that you want to watch for Christmas, make it a Christmas tradition, definitely want this to be one of them. So, for a final Narcotic Casserole rating, I am going to give it... Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you consider this to be a mediocre retelling of the origin of one of the greatest Christmas stories ever told? Or do you think that they couldn't have done it better? Leave it in the comments below, and for more festive content on Narcotic Casserole, simply like, share, subscribe, click, and thou shalt be served.